All right. It is time to get started with our live Q&A for today. Today, I want to talk about something that most parents I talk to struggle with or have questions about, and that is what to do when my partner and I aren't on the same page about how to parent our child. When two parents have different approaches, like one of them being stricter and the other one being more gentle, it can feel like you are in a constant clash. Bedtime routines, discipline, emotions, and even little things become power struggles, not only with your child, but with your spouse too. And that leaves you and everyone around even more tired and drained than if you had to deal with your child's behaviors alone. So, this tension doesn't just affect you, it affects your child. It gives them mixed messages, and you and your partner feel frustrated, resentful, hopeless. So, today I'll walk you through why this happens in the first place and what you can do about it, even if your partner isn't totally on board yet. Most parents get it wrong thinking that they have to be 100% aligned or thinking that your partner needs to change in order to do things right. You actually don't need your partner to do things exactly the way you do them, and you definitely do not need them to change. What matters is having consistent values and being respectful of each other's differences, particularly in front of your child. I'll give you some strategies that you can start implementing right away. But first, let's understand why. Why does this conflict between you and your partner happen in the first place? This is so important to understand because it allows you to have perspective. When you have perspective, you're able to come up with solutions that actually help your family grow. When parents disagree, they are not just disagreeing on a particular strategy. It's not about the surface level in the moment event like the iPad, the 1 more minute, or what's for dinner event. It's about, as always, what's underneath it, what's underneath all of it, the meaning behind that event assigned by either you or your spouse. These disagreements are really about values, childhood history, and unspoken expectations. You're not just parenting your child in that moment, you're either consciously choosing your parenting style or repeating your own upbringing. So, for example, your partner may feel triggered by big emotions or believe that obedience equals success as a parent, but you may value connection and flexibility more. Neither of you are wrong, but unless you both talk about those beliefs openly and understand each other's point of view, that conflict will continue to pop up. And then your child is left stuck in the middle, testing limits with one parent, afraid of the other one, unsure who to really go to or who to trust. So, hopefully this gives you a little bit more understanding of what's going on. Disagreements really happen because we all come into parenting with different histories and different beliefs. And until we understand that, we're not able to align with our partner. So, with that understanding, let's talk about what to do to actually get on the same page with your partner. I want to walk you through a few practical steps that you can start using right away. Step number one is to acknowledge your differences. Your partner isn't wrong just because they see things differently than you. Again, you were both raised very differently in different homes with totally different rules. So, of course, you don't see parenting the same way. When you can say, like, hey, we're both doing our best with what we learned growing up, it really takes the pressure off for both of you. And when that tension decreases or drops, you can actually start working together instead of against each other. That's when things start to change. You change from criticizing and nagging and constantly being annoyed, to collaborating and actually working as a team, making each other feel like you guys are on the same page, not against each other. Very, very important step to acknowledge and accept your differences. Step number two, which is probably my favorite, I share this with every parent I work with, is question what you believe in. And to do this, you can use the 5 whys. Before you can align with your partner, you have to understand your own internal map. Ask yourself the question, why do I react this way? Why do I believe that this is the right way to parent? If you don't understand why you believe in something, that means that you borrowed that belief from somebody else. It's literally not yours, it came from somewhere. And I'll give you an example. Growing up, my mom would tell me that if I had cold drinks at night, I would get sick. And I remember this time vividly where I was with my husband and he poured some water with ice, and I was like, "Don't do that. You're going to get sick." And he looked at me in the most like outrageous way, like, "What are you, what? This is sounds crazy." And I looked at him back like, "This is serious. Like, why are you looking at me like that?" And then he asked me a very important question that made me realize I don't even know where this comes from. He asked me, "Why? Why can't I drink a cold drink at night?" And when he asked that question, I actually didn't have an answer. And I won't tell you the whole story of what happened to that belief of mine, but what that question did for me was it made me realize that I didn't have an answer, which meant I did not know where that came from. So, to help you understand what you believe in, it's important to ask yourself why. Why do I believe that? To help you question what you believe in, you can use the 5 whys technique. Literally, ask yourself why 5 times until you reach the root cause of your belief. I'll give you an example. Let's say that I ask myself, why do I yell when my kid talks back? Okay, well, because I think it's disrespectful if my kid talks back to me. Okay, why is my kid being disrespectful a problem to me? Because I was raised to believe that talking back to adults was wrong. Okay. So, why does that belief matter so much to me right now? Why do thinking that talking back to adults was wrong really matter to me? Well, because I see respect as a sign of being a good person. When you are respectful, you are good. So, if my child talks back and talking back is bad, then I think that my child is not being a good kid or that I'm not being a good parent. Okay. So, why do I think that respect equals being good? Well, because growing up, every time I talked back, even if I wasn't being rude, I got punished. So, I learned that staying quiet actually was the right thing to do. Right thing, stay quiet. Wrong thing, talk back. Wrong thing is bad, right thing is good, being a good person. Okay, so why did that stick with me so deeply now that I'm a parent? Well, because deep down, I believed that I needed to be obedient to be good. I didn't feel heard unless I was quiet because that was the right thing to do. So now when my child talks back, I feel triggered. So you can see that when you dig deep enough, you'll realize that a lot of your parenting beliefs were borrowed. And when you see that clearly, then you get to choose, do I still believe in this or is it time to update it? And I want to be super clear here. This is not to say that what your parents did was wrong. Some of you may be thinking, well, my parents did X and Y and I turned out fine. So why can I do that to my children? Yes, you're correct. You're fine. But you grew up under different circumstances than your child is currently growing up in. And what worked for you may not be working for your child and your family. The circumstance is different. It's not about turning out fine or not. It's about making sure that you are consciously deciding how you parent instead of borrowing ideas from somebody else. Knowing what you believe in and knowing why you believe what you believe in is actually self-awareness, and that's the foundation for aligning with your partner. You don't have an argument if you don't know why you believe in what you believe in. So, super important step. Step number 3 is to choose a few non negotiables. Don't try to agree on everything. Instead, just pick 2 or 3 non negotiables that you both care about, like bedtime, maybe safety, and screen time. When you simplify it like that, you both know exactly where to stand firm on. It keeps you from having to argue over every decision, and your child learns that consistency, no matter what, or no matter who is in charge in that moment. A lot of the times, many of the conflicts I see with parents end with a conversation and an agreement on non negotiables. The problem is that you don't even think that a conversation is necessary. Most parents get stuck thinking, well, my partner should know better, or this is the better way. I wish he or she just knew. It doesn't work that way. Imagine that your boss did not give you any guidance, any direction, any expectations, or anything whatsoever on how to succeed in your role. And he would just go to the executives and be like, I wish that Susan just knew. That wouldn't be really fair, right? So it's better when we give each other direction. I highly encourage you to have a non negotiables conversation so you guys can start on foundational ground. This consistency, even if it's small, will make your child feel more secure, and they will stop testing so much because the rules will start to make sense to them. Step number 4 is to disagree in private. Now, this one is big. If your partner says something in the moment that you don't agree with, don't correct them in front of the kids. I know this is hard, but when you step right there and then, it can make your partner feel criticized and make your child feel unsure about who is really in charge. This gives your child a chance to see that there is wiggle room for them. They're so smart. And I know that you know that your child is so smart. They will notice. Instead, take a breath and just save that conversation for later for your partner. You can start like, hey, I want to talk about something that happened earlier. I think we saw it differently. And then that invites a conversation. It keeps the conversation respectful and it builds trust between the both of you. Step number 5 is going to be practice the same team mentality. When you feel yourself getting frustrated, remind each other that you're on the same team. It seems small and maybe even a little corny, but in the heat of the moment, it's important to find what I call positive triggers because those positive triggers will change your behavior. To understand this, I want to define what a trigger is. A trigger is something that sets off a reaction. Your alarm going off in the morning is your trigger to wake up. Using your toothbrush in the morning in the bathroom is your trigger to brush your teeth. A red light while you're driving is a trigger to step on your brakes. So, if you anchor the same team mentality and you remind each other that you are on the same team in the heat of the moment, that can be a positive trigger to give you more patience instead of more frustration. Again, it sounds small, but it's very, very effective and very powerful. Ultimately, you both want your child to grow up feeling safe, confident, and loved. You just have different ways and ideas of getting there. So, the moment that you guys start thinking me versus you, it all becomes a battle. But when you shift to us versus the problem, you can start making progress because you start working together on that problem. So, with that, with those 5 steps, I want to share just one common mistake to avoid. Letting parenting differences create distance in your relationship. If you get stuck in the loop of differences and allow that to create distance between both of you, you will feel disconnected. And those feelings of disconnection really fuel the fire that is already really hard to deal with. So avoid creating that distance. Instead, what you can do is schedule a weekly, like 15-minute check-in and ask yourself these three questions. What worked for us? What didn't? And what can we try this week to better our circumstance? So, hopefully, all that made sense. I got a lot of questions about this last time or the time prior. But I will open it up for any questions that we may have right now or that have come through. This one says, we got a parent ask, it's hard for us to agree on what's non-negotiable. How do we decide what really matters most for our family? That is a great question. It all starts with a conversation. Again, really understanding what is really, really important to you and why. The first thing that I would recommend would be both of you coming to the table with what you think is your not negotiable and your why. Starting with a conversation is going to be the best way to go about how to come to an agreement. Again, like I mentioned, the problem is that most of us think that a conversation is not necessary. We have the expectation and we wish and we hope that that other person would just agree with us, but it's not going to work that way. So, starting with a conversation, coming to the table with what your not negotiables are and why will be likely to reach you an agreement. You talked about questioning where our beliefs come from. How do I do that without feeling like I'm doubting my whole parenting approach? That's a great question. That I really think that this is a matter of really thinking strongly in your mindset and knowing that this exercise or this you questioning your belief is not really questioning your parenting, is just really understanding yourself. When you look at the exercise or the idea of questioning what you believe in as a tool to get to understand yourself better, as opposed to a tool to question your parenting, it really gives you a way more positive frame for that outcome. So start with that. I would really try to, even that alone, right? How do I stop feeling like I'm doubting my whole parenting approach? I would start with questioning that belief. Like, why do you feel that questioning what you are doing as a parent makes you doubt your whole parenting approach? And start with that wise question, because I think that that gives you an underlying root cause belief that you are not aware of. And that can give very powerful information to you on what next steps to take. We had a mom ask, sometimes my partner undermines me right in front of her child. How do I bring that up later without turning it into a fight? That is a great question. I actually get that question a lot. And that's very tough because it can feel very frustrating in the moment. But I highly encourage you that instead of reacting during the moment, that you pause. You don't want to do the same thing your spouse just did, because you would be just showing them what you don't want them to do, right? So instead, pause, show them what you would like them to do differently, and address it later when you are calm. You can say something like, hey, when you said X in front of the kids, I felt confused and a little frustrated. Can we agree to talk on this on private next time? So you can just tell them the frame is, when you did this, it made me feel this way. Can we do something differently? And that's how you can go about it. Now, if it happens a lot and that conversation or that frame doesn't actually change your partner's behavior, you may have to revisit your non negotiables or have a non negotiables conversation. The goal isn't really to win, is to just to protect your unity and making sure that you guys are coming as a united front to your kids. Um, How do I get perspective when I feel like my way is the right way and I'm tired of always compromising? What if your spouse doesn't want to compromise? Okay, there is a lot to unravel there, the first thing that I would do if you feel like your way is the right way is I would ask yourself this question: is it really? Is it working? Like, is your way working? Or are you looking for a different way to do whatever it is that you're doing because the results that you have with what you're doing are not what you expect them to be or what you want them to be? Because if you are looking for a different way from yours because you're not getting the results that you want, that may be an indicator that maybe is not the right way. Also, really keeping in mind again that there is no right or wrong. There is just different ways that we all grew up, different histories, different beliefs, different values. So there isn't a right or wrong. It's just understanding that we grew up differently. If you find yourself always compromising, then I would say go back to the non negotiables conversation and start everything with a conversation. I cannot emphasize this enough. Most of us think that a conversation is not necessary. We would like the other person to just do what we want them to do, but it doesn't work that way. So start with a conversation. Now, if your spouse doesn't really want to compromise or doesn't really have the conversation at all, what you can do is start small. So, say that you try to have a conversation, it turns into a fight, you're always compromising, something like that. Instead of wanting the conversation or wanting your partner to do X, invite the conversation like an invitation. Lead with curiosity. I'll give you an example. Instead of saying like, "Hey, I want to talk about our non-negotiables and I want us to get on the same page about X, Y, and Z so that we can get this outcome." What you That's a demand, right? You're telling them like, "Hey, I want to have this conversation because of this. I want us to get this outcome. Let's do this." That's a demand. If you have a lot of conflict with your spouse, that is likely way too high and way too much of an ask. What you can do instead is change it instead of a question to a statement. So instead of saying, "Let's have this conversation," you want to say, "Hey, I would love to have a conversation where we talk about why it happens that we are constantly not seeing eye to eye." You will love to have that. It's a statement, it's not an ask. It's a simple shift, but that invites your partner to be a collaborator as opposed to following your demand. That's very effective when you want to start that conversation. What if my partner and I both have deep rooted beliefs from childhood that totally clash? Where do we even start? This is a great question again. There, because of those deep rooted beliefs from childhood that totally clash, I would encourage you both to understand those deep rooted beliefs. Step number 2 that I talked about: really understand why you believe in what you believe in, and make sure that you have a strong compelling reason or argument for that. When you come to the table saying, "I believe in this because I said so," is a lot less compelling for me to follow your lead, as if you were to tell me, "I believe in this because of this and X, Y, and Z." Your partner is going to be more likely to follow your lead if you have a strong, compelling reason. So if you are in literally like clash territory, no way to overcome it, agree to at least understand your whys and have that conversation. You will be surprised how much more you agree on that you disagree on when you are actually able to communicate to your partner why you believe in what you believe in. That's where I would start with that. I got another question. What if my partner refuses to talk about parenting at all? Um, Also a great question, super common, similar to the question that I answered, of what if your spouse doesn't want to compromise. I would recommend that you start with curiosity instead of an expectation. Make a statement instead of a question. So instead of saying, "Let's talk about X," which is a demand. I'm telling you, I want to do this. I'm telling you, I have an expectation of you. Start with something like, hey, I notice that we're not always on the same page about screen time. I love to figure out together so that it's easier on both of us. Which one are you more likely to follow the lead on? Probably the one that says, like, hey, I'm just letting you know, I've noticed this and I will love for us to figure it out. Even if your partner doesn't agree right away, they are more likely to do it in the long term because it's not an expectation or a demand that feels like it's being placed on them. It's more of a collaboration. Um, what if my partner? I think I answered that question. And I think that is it for today's questions. Thank you, everybody. And I'll see you guys next week.